I've always enjoyed connecting to nature. The fresh flowing spring water, the lush native vegetation, fascinating creatures and insects. This is the Central Forest Reserve National Park.
Welcome to this edition of the Environment on You, brought to you by the Department of Environment. I am your host, Mr. Derionne Edmeade, Environmental Education Officer in the Department of Environment. Today I'm joined by Dr. Eric Browne, Forestry Officer, also from the Department of Environment. Welcome, Dr. Browne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edmeade. It's a pleasure being here to speak about forests, the passion, the life of the people.
Now, as you mentioned, the forest, Dr. Browne, this month, March, on the 21st, we are celebrating the International Day for Forests.
Good.
And this day began way back in 2012 when the UN declared that the forest must be given some form of recognition. They realized that we need to pay attention to what's going on in the forest, the different ecosystems from within the forest, and the different livelihoods within the forest. Now the theme chosen for this year is forest restoration. It's a path to recovery and well-being. Now as we get into discussion, Dr. Browne, why is our forest important?
Now, when we hear of the theme restoration with respect to forests, your question of the importance most definitely comes to mind. When we think about the importance of a forest, and in the context of us here in St. Kitts, the forest is the lungs of our society. Why I say it's the lungs of our society is where we get our clean air from.
Right.
It purifies the air. It conditions the air. We get the vegetation of the forest, takes away the air pollutant, especially carbon dioxide. It also traps dust and other pollutants as well from being harmful to us. It also gives off the oxygen that is so essential for life itself. The rainforest, as the name tells you, rain,
Right.
associated with rainfall. It conditions the air that facilitates precipitation, right, or the rainfall. Now this rain, as it falls, it replenishes our water source. How? In that the vegetation, the trees especially, it allows, when that rainfall comes down, the trees channel it to the soil. With the aid of their roots, helps it to soak into the soil and thus replenish our groundwater. This groundwater becomes available to us through the natural springs, the many natural springs that we have in our rainforest. It also replenishes the groundwater in the wells that we have dug at the lower slopes. Yes, it is because of the forests why we are able to have that water at our disposal. So when we turn on the tap in our homes, we must always think and thank the rainforest.
Well, from the fact check, it is noted that forests are home to at least 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity, with more than 60,000 trees. Now, growing up, we always hear that, we need to look after our plants and so forth, because, we look at the importance of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, and how human and trees both interact, and the importance. Now, the theme says forest restoration. What does that really mean?
Restoration means to put back how it once was, or close to what it once was. So when you talk about forest restoration, is to put back the forest to its, in terms of its functionality, its ecological functionality, its socio-economic functionality. In that the forest supports also livelihoods. How to put it back so that it will continue to meet that process of functionality. Restoring the forest means you got to, the different species that you so alluded to, is to those that are endangered of being lost. You would replenish their numbers. You would also help to maintain the quality of the forest. The forests have different, what we call stratas, different levels, right? From what we call the floor up to the canopy. And each one of these is important to maintain in terms of the structure and functionality of the forest. Forest restoration is restoring these. Also, when it comes more for human, the forest serves also to maintain livelihoods, that we get products.
Right.
We also use it for recreation, hikes and those kind of things. The persons who want to go to see those lovely waterfalls and walk and see the different flora and fauna that we have in our forest. We need to ensure that these continue to exist.
Food
as
security.
For our national anthem says, for posterity extend. So time and time again, we need to revisit the forest and look at the forest, study the forest, and also to absorb over time the changes, because it's dynamic. The forest keeps changing, it's nature, right? But at the same time, human also has a very strong impact upon the forest. At times, human become a burden on the forest because we do quite unnatural things to a natural environment. So time and time we need to restore what once was.
An interesting point that you made, that it relates to human activity and how we impact the forest. As a forestry officer dealing with the different park rangers, which is the unit that you are in charge of, down here in the Wingfield forested area, what are some of the issues or the problems that you're facing as a result of human activities as you patrol our forested areas?
As we go through the patrol, you know, humans come and humans go. The main issue we have is not that the humans come and go, but it's what they leave. A lot of foreign objects in terms of solid waste. You know, persons come into the forest and they have their snacks and whatnot, and they leave the wrappers and those behind. Many of these are plastic, of a plastic origin, and so then it is, these things are not natural, and they do not break down to give nutrients and continue nutrient cycle in the forest. And these foreign objects are detrimental to the survival of the forest.
So what would you say to persons who maybe use the forest for hikes, maybe they venture on our trails? You mentioned in your conversation that we're having that it's also as a source of livelihood. So is there anything that you can speak to in terms of how human activities impact either of these, the problems on the trails, or how they're using the forest for their livelihood?
Most definitely. When you have these solid waste left behind, as they decompose, they release chemicals that will be damaging to the trees. Also, these chemicals will also get into the groundwater, and that will affect the quality of our groundwater. Some species cannot survive because you're changing up the whole environment between the soil, and also may get the acidity of the soil and all this. Also for persons, it's very unsightly. When you come in and you're looking at garbage strewn all around, you know, you cannot really appreciate, you cannot really enjoy the ambience. Right. You know, you really can't enjoy what the forest itself has to offer. We want to come into the forest and have a healthy, you know, we're in Corona and the Corona protocol, but in the forest, you know, you can enjoy nature in a more wholesome, in a healthier environment.
One with the forest.
One with the forest. You know, inside here, you know, you can come and it's so vast. You can have good social distancing, but still enjoy a good day of relaxation and enjoyment in the forest.
Okay, so over the years, we would have heard that there are certain areas within the forest that is protected. Can you speak to that and as to why?
Okay, when it comes to forests in St. Kitts, we have what we refer to as the Central Forest Reserve National Park. And this area consists of over 4,000 acres. And this is where the area that is above the 1,000 foot contour is declared protected area. Protected so that we can protect our biodiversity. What does that mean? The vast variety of plants and animal species that we have, we want to maintain them so that they can be there to maintain the functionality of the forest. Each one have its role to play in the functionality of the forest.
So does that mean that I cannot go to this protected area and cut down trees, or I cannot go and build my livelihood within that area?
That's not what it means. What it means is that you will do it with certain limitations.
Oh.
You must be conscious of the functionality of the forest. So when you can go in the forest, you can use the forest, but you must be mindful so as whatever your activity is, it does not disrupt that biodiversity. It does not disrupt the ecological processes that happens in there. The forest supports person's livelihood. Guides that do tours, that's part of their livelihood. But if they don't have a forest, that livelihood will be lost. There are certain medicinal plants that we have in the forest that is of equal importance to person's well-being. We're not going to say, no, you cannot come. But what we are saying, you don't come and cut down everything. You take with moderation. You see, it's not many times, it's not just what we do,
how we do it.
We do it.
You
don't come and chop down a tree, because one thing, if you look above us, you will see that what we call the canopy, that that covers, nice and cool we have here. Now, if you were to go and chop down one of those huge trees and open that canopy and let the direct sunlight comes in, what you're creating now, you are now modifying the whole environment, what we call the microenvironment here. And so the plants under here that needs that shade will now be exposed to direct sunlight. They can die, right? The microenvironment in the soil in that particular may heat up too much. And it changes the whole dynamic, and it gets a chain reaction. Now that may come from chopping down just one tree. But in chopping down that one tree, you are destroying hundreds around.
Interesting conversation, Mr. Browne, and it's I'm happy that you were able to join me today to just to shed some light on the importance of our forest, because many of us, we go to the forest, whether it's hiking or whatever the case may be, and there are many of us who do not have the appreciation of what the forest really offers. So as we close this segment, the question I'm asking you, what would you say to persons listening to this conversation? What message would you like to leave with them as it speaks to our forest?
Our forest is our life. Our forest is our livelihood. Our forest is our heritage. We must preserve it. Our forest is essential to maintain the socio-economic processes of our lovely thinkers. Let us conserve, preserve, and protect this vital element of our life.
Well, thank you, Dr. Browne, for joining me, and I think I will have to have you back another time where we can even expound more on the importance of our forests. I want to also thank you for joining us today, as my guests would have provided some information on the do's and the don'ts of our forests and why it is also important. This conversation was brought to you and powered by Smart Electronics. Thank you and goodbye.